Alright, y'all, what is up? I'm going to be talking about Ringworld today. This is going to be my first part review. I'm just updating everybody on how it's going, how the book's going for me. I'm about 75% done with it. And at that point, you might be thinking, like, why not just do the whole review? Well, I've just thought to myself, maybe let me try doing these partial reviews somewhere during the course of the week just to get something on paper. And as I get through the book, because my intent is to be reviewing sci-fi books as a regular thing for the rest of my life, just as I plan to review movies for the rest of my life. So yeah, all life plan stuff. So yes, let's talk about Ringworld. Ringworld was written in 1970 by Larry Nevin, who is a famed sci-fi author who I guess came up with the concept for the Ringworld. Well, maybe as an alien megastructure, he did. And as a larger concept, the Ringworld was I guess a concept for a rotating space station, or a wheel-like space station, which is something that exists already in the current, or existed by the time he wrote this book. So, yeah, and again, this is a hard sci-fi book. Though the interesting thing about it, as I was reading it, I didn't get the hard sci-fi sense of it being like a hindrance to reading. Now, why do I say that? Because the last hard sci-fi book that I read was Peter Watt's Blind Sight book, and that was written in 2006, and granted, in 36 years, from 1970 to 2006, the state of science had evolved quite significantly, of course, in that time period. For some reason, like, I felt like even if this book was written later on, which there are many sequels to the Ringworld books, I guess there's several of them, and then there's a alternative story universe written with other authors, co-written by Larry Nevin. I would say that even with I feel that, like, he's just really good at making hard sci-fi not seem terribly painful to ingest. And now I will say this much, that I read Blind Sight about 4 or 5 months ago, and I've been really beefing up my science chops. Also, I have a physics background, so maybe just hard sci-fi for me is easier to read now in general, right? It happens over time as you learn things. But I'll say this much, that I enjoyed this. The reading is going really smooth for me for this book, and I enjoy the world building. I enjoy the characters. At first, it was kind of a weird book, and it starts by throwing you right into the mix of things, with main characters. And by the way, spoiler alert for those who my reviews have spoilers in them, so yeah. But I'm not going to talk about, like, how heavy this, like, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, just maybe some parts so far for this part 1 review that are interesting to me. But yes, the book is, the character building, the species building, it starts off very kind of strange and random, and it becomes, like, very interesting and evident. And I feel that as I'm reading it, that I'm in kind of like a hard sci-fi version of a 70s space thriller, which this is essentially. But it's really hard to put. I enjoy it intellectually, and I enjoy it for its, like, somewhat campy factor, and the species that are in the book, just to recall, like, so far up to this point, right? Like, I'm 75% of the way through the book, so the species encountered so far as, like, unique individual elements, I'll talk a little bit about that, are the human beings, which the humans have, and this is going into the, we might as well go into the setting. So humans are human beings. The year is, I guess, 2850 or something like that. Crazy. Humans, have evolved a lot over time, but somewhere in the mid third millennium, they encountered, I guess, the 26th century circa, they encountered the Kazin, which is a warlike alien race of cats, which is prominently featured in this book. And they basically look like 8-foot large, orange, angry-looking tiger aliens with parasols for ears. And they have become they have they've been at the point where they almost conquered humanity, but they, I guess, failed because the human beings got a lucky hold of a weapon called, or something called a hyperdrive, and at that point, humanity was not able to, the Kazin were not able to defeat humanity, and humanity pushed the Kazin back. So, and they, going into the story, you find out that the hyperdrive was given to humanity not by chance. Like, essentially, there was like a fortunate encounter with somebody selling the hyperdrive from an alien race that was pretty advanced but didn't care too much. But this whole thing was set up by the third alien race in the book, which is called Pearson's Puppeteers, which is kind of like a very, very intelligent sheep of some kind, or a very, very intelligent two-headed herd animal that is basically it's basically the most advanced race encountered up till the Ringworlders in this point, and this race is a race of, again, herd animal people, which this was a unique concept to me because I didn't know that I didn't think about that before, but like they basically have all the behaviors of herd animals, and their entire species is designed around self-preservation. Like that's all they care about. So they're cowards, and anyone who's not a coward in their race is actually ostracized as being insane. And actually, a lot of the insane ones make a lot of the technological and scientific and spatial discoveries, but then they end up usually dying. But they're considered as ostracized because they'd be bad influences on society, essentially, the herbivore society. And I mean, you see, so basically this race of herbivores, which has a very interesting, I guess, a lot of interesting pieces, like how they mate, how they have 3 sexes, how one of the sexes is not sentient, and that could bring controversy in today's world. But in the 1970s, there was room for things like that in literary fiction and science fiction. You could explore things a lot differently, I guess, than you could today. But yeah, and Nevin is still alive, and I think he's still writing, so I'm looking forward to seeing how his writing has evolved over the years. But I'll say this much too, that there's, like, again, the world building. Okay. Let me, before I go to the world building, let me continue on with the race of Pearson's Puppeteers. So the Puppeteers basically pitted humanity against. They didn't pit humanity; they favored humanity because humanity seemed more able to be diplomatic, and a more diplomatic race in the universe allows for the puppeteer's survival and expansion. Whereas if the Kazin became too powerful, which they were tending towards, then that would cause them to eventually perhaps try to destroy the puppeteers. So basically, the puppeteers engineered. They do special engineering, which they engineer the fates of species through, like, infiltrating their collectives and infiltrating their governments and initiating programs that cause cause some sort of society level changes. And essentially, that's how they engineered humanity to be lucky. That's what the value that they thought of preserving humanity. Humanity was a lucky species and easy to deal with. And which is really interesting because in the framework of the universe, yes, relatively speaking, I guess they are lucky. Many other races ended up annihilating themselves, whereas the humans, despite all of their near misses, which is described by the main puppeteer Nessus in this book, humanity has somehow survived and should have killed over many thousands of times already. And so essentially, there's a premise in how the fourth character of the book, Tila Brown, who is the romantic liaison of the main character, Louis Wu, is picked for this mission. So essentially, this Nessus puppeteer character is looking for a mission to go to this Ringworld, this mysterious Ringworld, really mysterious Ringworld, that the puppeteers fear, because essentially this Ringworld is much more advanced than their current technology allows. So essentially, this puppeteer wants to create a team of people who would excel at being able to get to this Ringworld. So again, like, the motivations are interesting for this. Like, again, everything hasn't played out yet, and I think I probably missed why exactly the puppeteer chose this exploratory team. And I think this particular puppeteer, was ostracized from society because they were adventurous. They themselves were quite adventurous, and again, they were adventurous enough. They were still cowardly, or they thought of themselves as cowardly, but they were adventurous enough to go into space and try to find representatives from the society, in all the societies in questions, the Kazin, humans, and I guess themselves included, to go and discover this Ringworld. So the Ringworld itself, we can talk about the plot development, we can talk about the setting, but I really, really, really enjoyed exploring the Ringworld. And a lot of the times I don't, but I think the way that Nevin described the dimensions of the Ringworld was amazing to me. Like, I felt like I felt it was alive, and the Ringworld was an infinite expanse, virtually infinite expanse full of infinite wonders to solve. And it's hard to imagine the size of the Ringworld, except I think Nevin tried to describe it many times, how essentially you couldn't see horizons because the walls of the Ringworld were thousands of miles tall. That there was a tall mountain, artificial mountain in the Ringworld called the Fist of God, which was like several thousand miles high, or around that amount. So these things are very difficult to visualize, and he even made many references to how the characters themselves are overwhelmed by the size of the place. But the other thing is, you start off, there's this video game element to it. You start off quest element. You start off essentially getting to the Ringworld. That's a whole challenge unto itself by the four main characters. They got to the Ringworld. The Ringworld is this massive, I guess 189 million mile circumference ring that's rotating at 770 miles an hour or something like that. Like some kind of ridiculous speed of rotation for something that massive. And it's surrounding its star. It's a G-type star, which is it's basically surrounding its sun, and I guess it's powered. Well, it's powered. It seems like it's powered primarily by its sun, but the Ringworld itself, essentially they get there. The team gets there. They're shot down somehow, and they are forced to land in their ship, which is called the Lyre, to explore this Ringworld. And so they are exploring something that has 3 million. That has I guess the surface area is, what I don't know exactly what they said in terms of Earth size, is 3 million times the size of Earth, I think, surface area wide, or 3 million times the surface area of Earth, which is absolutely insane to imagine. Imagine all of Earth, and then 3 million more times it flattened out to explore. Think of a Mercator projection and multiply it times 3 million in a ring formation. That's just absolutely indescribable, the size, the length, the dimensionality, right? But if you think about the dimensions of things that exist in the universe, even that is considered small by some standards, right? But it's basically this Ringworld is a replacement for a planet, or supposed to be a replacement for a planet that was destroyed, apparently a much larger planet than Earth. And again, it dwarfs the sun that it surrounds. So, it's just there's just infinite adventure on this Ringworld, and I haven't checked whether there are video games for Ringworld, what other media there is for Ringworld. I'm going to do that, but the exploration is very interesting because a good deal of the exploration in the first book yields that the Ringworld seems to be either mostly uninhabited, or inhabited with people who have no idea. They're extremely primitive, and they have no idea. They're essentially down to like, cave people living. They have no idea how to use modern technology or the history of the Ringworld, except through the lore of their, I guess, progenitors. And there's a few of them that can talk to. Apparently, they're waiting for the Ringworld engineers to return, who essentially represents their gods because they're the ones who created the Ringworld, etc. So they're essentially portrayed as savages, and there's just so much rich variation in this book's like description of the puppeteer race, description of the Kzinti, which the Kzinti species, the Kazin species, have been borrowed by Star Trek apparently. So that in itself is interesting to me as well. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up this book, and I will do a significant part 2 review of this, and I'm also going to go into the history and find out what's going on, what did Nevin do throughout his career, and how good the other books are. I might pick that book or a completely different book to read for my next book, and if you see this and have any suggestions, let me know, and I'd be happy to accommodate and try to read that book, and maybe even react to that book or a page of that book live. I don't know. Who knows? And I might just be talking to myself. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.